All right. Well, I am going to go ahead and get started. I appreciate everyone showing up. Thank you so much. So, as you can see, you are at a first-time homebuyer webinar, and I have been doing these now for about 7 months, and this is my passion. I've been in the mortgage industry now for about 2 decades, and I work with a lot of first-time homebuyers, worked with a lot of families and helped them purchase their first home. I'm really excited to share this information with you. So, my name is Pete Metz, and I actually am from Northern Indiana. I actually grew up in a small town called Napanee, Indiana, and in 1999, I actually moved to California, and I was born and raised in Northern Indiana. So I live here in Northern California. However, I have a mortgage office there in Northern Indiana, and we serve the Michiana, you know, area, Wakarusa, Elkhart County, Kosciuszko County. So if you're in any of those areas, we definitely love to working with you guys there. So I got in the mortgage business in 2002. I started Vaughn Mortgage in 2019, and I have a daughter. This is my daughter here. She is 11 years old, and she just went into sixth grade. So I love hanging out with her. And then, like I said, I love helping families like yourself purchase new homes and get into real estate. If you have questions during this webinar, then I will be doing a question and answer at the end. So if you have questions, go ahead and put it in the chat while we're talking, and I will definitely get to all your guys' questions here once we're done here. We're going to be maybe 20-30 minutes. We're going to get through this. A lot of good information, and so I'm going to go ahead and get through it, get started. So these are just some proof cases or some examples, testimonials that I wanted to share. This person we closed a few weeks ago, back in July. I can't wait to open escrow with you and your team again. These are just basically testimonials, and we're closing a lot of first-time home buyers that are able to purchase their first home. And so our agenda that we're going to talk about today is, what is a first-time home buyer? What are the biggest challenges purchasing a home right now? The financial benefits. What are the financial benefits of owning a home? Understanding your budget. How do you qualify? What do you want to look for? How do you know how much you can purchase a home for? The pre-approval process. What does that look like? Whoops. Pre-approval process, going to talk about closing costs, and then we're going to talk about all the down payment assistance programs. So when you're done with this call, I'm going to actually email you guys this. It's a PDF document, but this has all the down payment assistance programs that can help you purchase. So it actually covers the down payment for you. There's multiple programs like Indiana Housing. They give you a down payment. There's state programs, there's federal programs. And so I'm going to send this booklet out to you guys when we're done with the call. So the first thing is, what is a first-time home buyer? A first-time home buyer is, by definition, anyone that has owned a home, has not owned a home in the last 3 years. So if you haven't owned a home in the last 3 years, then technically you would qualify as a first-time home buyer, which is great. You can actually own land and still be a first-time home buyer. It's just you haven't owned a single-family residence or a residence that you actually live in. What are some of the biggest challenges right now purchasing a home? And this is what you might see or maybe even feel for yourself. Some of the biggest challenges, prices are too high. I hear this a lot. Interest rates are too high. Certainly interest rates are a challenge right now. Mortgage payments versus rent. What, my mortgage payment is going to be higher than maybe paying rent. Saving for a down payment, we're going to talk about that. You don't necessarily need a down payment with a lot of these programs. You can qualify without having to save up a big down payment. And of course, credit score could be a challenge. And so we're going to talk about these 5 things. Let's talk about prices being too high. I don't necessarily, I agree, but I don't. And the reason why is because I'm going to go back in history and show you guys the historical home values and what's happened since 1942. And you can see here since 1942, home prices have actually appreciated every single year. And there's only been 7 years where home prices actually declined. And 2 of those 7, I wouldn't really call it a decline because 1990 and 1991, 1990 home prices went down 1%. And in 1991, home prices went down 0.1%. Wouldn't really call that a decline. What we're really looking at and we're all concerned about is 2007. None of us want another 2007. What happened in 2007? Well, that's what they call the real estate crash. And you can see here that we haven't had a crash like it since before then, and we haven't had one since. And you can see the market, the real estate home values did decline for 5 straight years. And so we're going to talk about that too. But this is the home price since 1942. It's been a very, very, very strong last 80 years because every single year home prices have done very well except for that time. We're going to talk about that time of why home prices actually decline. This is a recent news article that I found, and you may connect with it. So for house sellers and buyers alike, this has been a winter of disconnect, chilled by Himalayan mortgage rates to the dismay of sellers. House prices are faltering to the dismay of buyers that's not making monthly payments any more affordable. So this is a recent news article. Interest rates are up and home prices are expensive. Here's another one in 2017. Home prices, the US in 2017, this was a news article. The US housing bubble 2017 is no black swan because it's predictable, saying there's going to be a market crash. However, in 2017, home prices actually appreciated 6%. Okay, same for 2018. Why the housing market is slumping despite booming economy. Same thing. House prices increased in 2018 5%. So every single year, the media is predicting a housing crisis, housing crash, because home prices continue to rise ever since 1942. Housing market crisis 2.0. The jury is in for 2008 to 2019. Talking about a housing crash. Well, in 2019, home prices appreciated 4%. So that first news article that I showed you, talking about Himalayan mortgage rates and house prices faltering, you see that was written in 1980. So if we go back every single year, all the way back to 1942, there's going to be some news article, there's going to be some media talking about a housing crash, but in reality, house prices continue to do well. Well, you might be asking, why is that, Pete? Why do home prices continue to do well, even if rates are higher? This here is a graph of interest rates and also home values. So you can see here all the way in 1942, interest rates are at 3.75. Home prices actually, let someone in here. House prices actually increased 3% that year. The interest rate in 1980 got all the way up to 13, 16%. However, home values went up by 7% in 1980, 14% in 1979. Last year, rates doubled. Rates doubled last year, went from 3% to 6.5% interest rates. However, we still had a market appreciation. Home values still went up 6% from the previous year. And so you might be, the biggest thing is, we have buyers that are wanting to buy, but they're saying, hey, Pete, we're going to wait for home values to come down. Well, I don't think it's a smart move, especially if you can find a home that's affordable and a payment that's affordable to you and your family, because you might be waiting a long time. You see, homes, they don't go up in value or down in value based on interest rates. They change based on what's called supply and demand. And this is for anything, right? This is for gasoline prices. This is for anything that you buy at the market. This is for food. It's based on supply and demand. The more demand you have for a product, the higher the price is going to go. And that's primarily why we're seeing gas prices and we're seeing other other prices at the grocery store, and they call it inflation. Why prices on everything is rising? Well, that's because there's too much demand. Everyone has money and they have a lot of money, and there's a lot of demand for all of our goods and services. And so these prices are increasing in value. Well, the opposite is true as well. When there isn't demand, these prices will come down because competition will bring those prices down. They'll have to lower the price until it actually has equilibrium. Well, it's the same thing for real estate. You see, real estate goes up and down based on supply and demand. And so when we look at back in 2007, when we had this market crash in 2007, 2008, 2009, you see the market didn't crash because of any other reason except for supply and demand. I mean, you had all these other mortgages that were done, that people, had these adjustable rate mortgages. But the truth of why home prices actually declined for 5 straight years was because there was too many homes on the market, there was too much supply, and there was not enough demand. Not enough people needed housing at that time. And so when we fast forward, this is decade by decade, each decade home price appreciation. So, you can see in the 40s, homes appreciate 129%, in the 50s, 36%. You can see all the way every decade, all the way to 2020, and this actually is a more recent, this is a more recent of home price appreciation. This year already, homes have appreciated about 2 to 3%, and we're on pace to appreciate 5 to 10% this year. This is 5 different companies that show home price appreciation, and they actually track this. They've tracked this for a very long time. So this is January of this year, February, March, April, May, June, and you can see this yellow actually are all-time highs for real estate. Okay, and so why is this? Well, like I was saying, it's supply and demand. And so how do we measure this? I'm going to go through this quickly and kind of give you guys a broad idea of how we measure supply and how we measure demand. So what is supply? Supply is a home that's on the market. So if we look at, what's on the market, we look at Zillow and we say, okay, let's look at Elkhart County. How many homes are on the market? Well, right now, there is way less homes on the market compared to what we are normally used to. And if you have someone selling their home, if someone's going to put their home on the market, more than likely the person that's selling their home, they're going to then go buy another home. And so it cancels each other out. So someone selling their home doesn't really create supply. Well, what creates supply? That's builders. We measure how many homes they're actually building. And so if a first-time home buyer like yourself, if they actually want to buy a house, you don't have a home to sell, you're taking a home off the market, but you never sold a home. And so you're taking supply away. So that adds to the supply and demand problem, which is why home values continue to appreciate. And so what happened back in 2007? Well, in 2007, we had about 4 million homes on the market in 2007. This is nationwide, of course. And I'm going to get into Elkhart County, Kosciuszko. I'm going to get into your guys' local market here. But in 2007, we had 4 million homes nationwide. Well, how many homes, Pete, do we have on the market today? Well, today we have under 1 million homes on the market. So you can see a big difference. So we don't nearly have nearly the amount of homes that are that we need to be on the market. You can see it's declined sharply. And why is that? It is because builders have not been able to keep up. Okay, so what is demand? How do we track demand? We just talked about supply. And what is supply? Supply is homes on the market, primarily builders bringing supply to the market. Because if you have someone selling a home, that does bring a home to the market, but that person selling is going to also then buy. Most are going to buy. And so it's a cancellation. So the major contributor to the supply is builders. Well, what is demand? Demand is mostly first-time home buyers that's coming into the market that do not have a home to sell. Okay. And we can track how many of them are, how many new buyers are coming into the market by, we call this new household formation. Well, what's a household formation? A household formation is when my daughter, she's 11 years old and she's going to go and buy a new house or she's going to go and live on her own. Maybe she doesn't buy, but when she turns 18, she's going to move out of my house, going to be very sad. When she moves out, she's going to go get her own place. And that is called a new household formation. This happens a few different ways. The main way is when the younger generation moves out. So we have a lot of millennials. We have millions and millions of millennials, way more than what we had back in 2007, new buyers coming into the market. It also can happen when there's divorces. You have one household and then someone gets a divorce. Well, that now creates two households. So we track this and they're called household formation. So what you're looking at here is a graph all the way back to 2004. You can see in 2007 how many household formations we had back in 2007. Well, yeah, that's this blue line right here. Well, how many homes were being completed at that time, new builds? Well, this is how many completions. So you can see we had over double, 3 times as many homes on the market than what we had for demand. Now we fast forward all the way to today in 2023, and you can see the household formations are way more. Look at how many were here. We have way more household formations. Like I was saying, this is the millennial generation and the Gen Zers. The average first-time home buyer, by the way, is about 35 to 36 years old. We got some new people coming in, joining the call. So the average age for first-time home buyer is about 35, 36 years old. And so you can see here that we have way more household formations than what we have homes to actually sell. So this is more of a local look for Elkhart County. I have Kosciuszko and some of the other counties there in northern Indiana, but in Elkhart County, there's about 208,000 people in that area. And this big gray area right here, this is a percentage of home ownership. This is how many people actually own a home, this big gray box right here. This other blue part right here are renters. This is maybe yourselves that are actually currently renting a home. And so you can see here that there's a 72%. So this gray area is 72% of the total population that actually own a home. And we can go back 20, 30 years, and this typically stays pretty consistent at about 72% in your area. So we know that 72% of the population are homeowners. Well, what does that mean? So when we have new household formations, someone moves out and gets their own place, 72% of those people are going to what? They're going to buy a house, right? And so that's what this is here. 14,000 of the population actually qualify, can afford to purchase a new home in today's market. So what does that mean? Well, there's 2,500 new household formations in Elkhart County. This is by the U.S. Census Bureau and a few other reports here that we got this from. 25 new household formations, and 72% are going to be actually purchasing their own home because we have a 72% home ownership rate. And so 1,800 new families buying homes, and we look at how many new houses being built. There's only 395. So what does this tell us? Oh my gosh, this is an amazing, amazing opportunity to buy real estate, to buy your first home, and start building equity, start building some wealth for you and your family. This is why I get so excited about real estate, because it's just a great way to buy your first home and you can start building equity. What is equity? Well, I'm going to show you what the benefits are of now owning your own home and what this actually looks like dollar-wise for you guys. These are some statistics that I pulled, and I'm going to go ahead and read them. Building equity. According to the Federal Reserve, homeowners in the U.S. had a median net worth of $255,000 in 2019 compared to just $6,300 for renters. Well, why is that? Well, that's because of equity and equity gains based on that value of the home. Building wealth. According to the Joint Center of Housing Studies at Harvard, the median homeowner in the U.S. has a net worth that is 80 times greater than the median renter. This is largely due to the fact that homeownership provides a stable long-term investment that can appreciate in value over time. So if you bought a house, back in, you know, some of you might not be this old, but if you bought a house back in 2003, look at all the appreciation that you would have had, even without these years, even with these years, you would still have a lot of equity, and you pay down that mortgage during that time. It's never too late to jump in and buy your first piece of real estate. So what does this actually look like? Well, let's say you guys bought a home. Let's say you bought a home for 250,000. Now, the average purchase price in your area is 223,000. Average purchase price in Elkhart County is 223,000. The payment on 250,000, if you bought for 250,000 with taxes, insurance, this is if you did 100% financing. If you got one of these programs that I'm going to send you, remember, I'm going to send you all these down payment assistance programs that you're going to have available. Well, if you bought and used one of these programs and didn't come in with any money, that payment is going to be about $1,975. You might be saying, Pete, I'm paying, $1,200-$1,300 for rent, or maybe you're paying $800-$900 for rent. I was looking in your area on Zillow, and I found some really, really nice places for 150,000. So 120,000. You can buy a home for these prices. I'm just using this 250 example to give you an idea. So at $250,000, that payment is going to be $1,975. Well, what does this look like in 5 years? Well, if you're paying rent of $1,400, remember, when you pay rent, that rent is going to go up every single year. Every single year it's going up, just no matter what. When you buy a house and you have a fixed mortgage payment, for example, this 250,000, that payment of 1975, that's a fixed payment. That payment's not going up. The only way that payment goes up is if your homeowner's insurance increases, or if your home goes up in value, but it's not by a lot. And of course, if your home goes up in value, you're gaining equity, and this is the whole point. We're talking very low increases. But what actually is true is that as rates come back down, you can refinance this 1900. This payment you see can actually come down because you can refinance and take a lower interest rate. Historically, rates go up and rates come down. And just 2-3 years ago, rates were at 3%. Well, right now, we're sitting in the high sixes, low sevens. You get this payment now, and so you can actually refinance and lower this payment. Well, and if you're renting, the rent is just going to continue to go up. Okay. Now, what does this look like in 5 years? If you paid rent of $1,400, that looks like $92,000 over the next 5 years that you would spend on renting. And if you bought for 250,000, you spend about 118,000. Yes, I realize that is more. Well, $16,000 of that mortgage is paying down the principal of your loan. That's actually giving you principal reduction. So you really only threw away 102,000. But hold on, that home that you bought for 250,000 is increasing every year in value, just like it has since 1942. And in 5 years, and this is based on a 4% appreciation per year, you're going to have $75,000 in equity. What does that mean? It means that if you sold your home in 5 years, your loan balance would only be $229,000, but you'd sell it for $304,000. So you'd get a check for $75,000 if you did want to sell the house. But my recommendation is never sell. I always say keep your real estate, because you can rent your home and then you can go buy another home. And when you go buy your second home, this is a little house hack, and I'll be doing more education pieces on this, but a house hack is basically you can buy this house today, and year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, you can then buy another house, only have to put 5% down. You don't have to put 20% down every time you buy a house. You can go buy your next house, move, turn that one into a rental, and now you have two homes that are appreciating in value, and every couple of years you're saving up 5% for that next house. Super good way to build wealth. So you can see here, 5-year gain. If you bought for the median home price, that home you buy for 223, 5 years is going to be worth 261,000. Now, real estate is super, super powerful. And you, let's say, buy your house for, let's say you buy for 300,000. Now, I just showed you 250. This is 300,000. This is based on a 4% appreciation. We can do these numbers for 120,000 if you buy for 120, or we can do it for anything. But let's just take a look at what 4% is. 4% of 300,000. This is on average what homes appreciate, about 3 to 4%. In your area in Elkhart County, if we go back 63 years, the average is 3.3% market appreciation. If we go back 5 years, it's 7% appreciation. So if we go out, the forecasted amount is actually 4% for this next year appreciation for your guys' market, and 16% over the next 5 years. Well, what is 4% of 300,000? That's $12,000. Well, it actually compounds. So by year 2, you have $24,000 of equity gained. By year 3, 37,000. Year 4, 50,000. And you might be asking, well, how much did we put down on this house? Well, maybe you did 100% financing. Maybe you did 0 down, or maybe you put like a small down payment of maybe $5,000, $6,000. Well, you tell me what you can invest in and put $5,000 in, and in 3 or 4 years get, $37,000, made on that money that you put in. It's a great way to leverage. And that's what I mean. Leverage, the value is appreciating based on that value, not based on what you invested. Maybe you didn't put any money down, or maybe you did put, a very low down payment. So what's the process? How do you get pre-approved? Well, there's 3 things that we look at when we pre-approve you: credit, income, and assets. These 3 things. And you want to make sure you have these 3 things to be able to purchase your first home. Now, by the way, I'm going to talk about this, but if you're looking at buying today, tomorrow, if you're looking at buying in a year, 2 years, I want to help you. I want to walk you through this process, because I've walked hundreds of families through the same exact process, and this is what I love to do. I wanted to show you exactly where you're at in the process and what you need to do to get to that home ownership. And so these 3 things we'll talk about in our appointment if you want to book an appointment, which, by the way, I did put a link in the chat, and I'll put it in there again to book a free appointment with me. But let's talk about credit. The minimum score you need to purchase your first home, and at 100% financing, is 600. Now, you can still buy under 600, but you just have to come in with a down payment. A small down payment, like 3%, but you can buy 100% financing all the way down to 600. Now, you want to make sure you maximize your credit, and I'm going to help you. You don't necessarily want to just have 600. I'm going to help you maximize that score, which, by the way, I have what's called a soft credit pull feature, where it doesn't affect your credit whatsoever. When we talk and do our appointment, I can take a look and do a soft credit pull, analyze it, and tell you exactly what you need to do to maximize your credit score. We're going to help you with that. The next thing is income. The debt to income ratio. You may have heard debt to income ratio terminology before. And what this simply means is you take the mortgage payment plus your monthly expenses, can't be more than 50% of your monthly income. So what does this mean? Well, let's say your mortgage payment that we look at is, let's say your mortgage payment's 15. I just talked to a borrower today, a family, and they're looking at buying there in Elkhart County for 140,000 for them and their family. There's lots and lots of homes that are for sale for 140 to 150,000. Well, that payment is about $1,100 a month with taxes, insurance, and everything included. You'll find a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in a decent neighborhood. So let's say $1,100. So this means that you take $1,100 for the mortgage payment, plus any other monthly expenses, like if you have a car payment or if you have credit card payments, anything that's going to show up, something that you borrowed on your credit report, we add that monthly amount. We don't care about the balance. Okay. You might have a car loan for 20,000. We don't care about the balance. It's the monthly payment. So you take the new mortgage payment, let's say $1,100, plus any monthly expense. Let's say you have a car payment of $300. And let's say you have credit card payments and that totals $100. So you have $1,100 car payment, a $300 $1,100 mortgage payment, a $300 car payment, and $100. Well, how much is that? That's about $1,500 total. So if you want to qualify and keep your car, keep your credit cards, and not have to pay those off, it's $1,500. You want to be making double that. So take 1,500 times 2, $3,000. So you want to be making total combined before taxes, not what's deposited into your bank, but before taxes, gross income. You want to make about $3,000 a month. And so that's debt to income ratio. I can help you with that as well during our appointment. I'm going to say, okay, this is about how much you'll be able to purchase for. I just met with someone today. They told me their income. We went over it and I said, oh, you could buy for up to 180 and they wanted to spend about 140,000. Assets. You want to have some savings in the bank, at least 1 month, 2 month of the mortgage payment after we close. So you want to have some savings. Now, as far as the down payment, don't worry about necessarily having a down payment, because remember, these programs that I'm going to send to you, you can actually use these to help qualify to not have to put any down payment down and come in with zero money. And then, you just have to worry about reserves. Now, what are reserves? It's basically money that you have left over that are in the bank for emergency purposes. You want to always have this emergency fund, whether you buy a house or not. It's always just a good recommendation. And I say 1 to 6 months. It's not a requirement. You don't have to, but it is what I recommend if, for when you're buying your first home. All right. So what are closing costs? Let's talk about that. So I don't want to scare you, but closing costs are expensive. Closing costs for a first-time home buyer ranges from 5 to 6% of the purchase price. And 5 or 6%, that's it could be a lot. It's a big number. And so what are all these costs, and who does it go to, and who does it pay, and why is it there? Well, these are all. So as a lender, we have to, because we're giving you the loan, we have to disclose to you, the buyer, how much they are and who is actually charging. So these closing costs are not coming from us, the lender. There's only 2 that are, you can see here, the first 2. Everything else is third party. You see, I have to disclose to you what the appraiser charges you. I have to disclose to you what the title company charges you, who the notary charges you, what the county recorder charges you. I have to disclose this. Now, who pays for all this? Well, you don't have to pay for this. We get the seller to pay this. Almost every single first-time home buyer, the secret, they get the seller paying the closing costs. You might be asking yourself, well, Pete, why would a seller want to pay my closing costs? Right? It's a great question. And some might not want to pay your closing costs, but this is how it's done. You work with a really, really good realtor, and I can get you set up with a good realtor. So this is how it's done. Let's say you find a home for $200,000, okay? And you really like this house. You want to make an offer on this house. You got qualified. I'm going to give you an approval letter and that home, and you want to ask the seller to pay all your closing costs. But say, okay, I'm going to offer $200,000 and we're going to ask the seller to pay my $7,000 of closing costs. And that $7,000 is going to make it to where you don't have to come in with any money. 100% financing, no money out of pocket. It's a great deal for the buyer. Well, the seller, that means the seller is only going to get $193,000. This $193,000. What if they don't want $193,000? What if they want $200,000? Or what if there's 3 offers and another buyer is saying, hey, I'll give you the $200,000? Well, of course, what you can do, this is another trick, another hack. You can say, okay, fine, I'll give you $207,000 for that house instead of $200,000. You're going over ask, and you ask for that $7,000 back. Essentially, what we're doing here is we're basically adding this to your loan amount. We're adding this into your loan. We're going to be financing in the closing costs if the seller doesn't want to. So you can see here in both situations where the seller pays it, or if you add it to your loan amount, both scenarios, you don't have to come out of pocket for this large amount of money. And it's a win-win for everybody. So what are all these programs? I'm going to email all of these out to you. There's about 15 different programs that you'll get. But I do want to give you a little background of what you're looking at. You see, I don't expect you to read through this and say, Pete, I want to do this one. This one looks like the best one for me because it's a lot of information. Think of me as the doctor. And what we're going to do is when you call and book your appointment with me, I'm going to be like the nurse and the doctor where we get your symptoms. What are your symptoms? Well, this is Pete. I make this amount of money. I have this much in the bank and I pay this much in rent. I'm going to get all this information and say, okay, this is what I would do if I was you. This is the program I would pick. This is the loan program that I would say you should do. See, I know these programs like the back of my hand, and I'm going to say, hey, if I was in your spot, this is the one that I would pick if I were you. It's going to be the one with the lowest payment for you, the least amount out of pocket, or if you want to put a down payment, you can. But this is what I do. I actually diagnose and give you what you're looking for, give you that advice that you need. But I do give you all the information so you can actually know, what you're looking at. So every loan program, every down payment assistance program, every loan is on this sheet. So there's 5 different loans. I'm going to get my tool and write here for you guys. Which, by the way, if you guys have questions, I'm going to be answering. Some of you came in late, and that's okay. If you have questions, you can put those questions in the chat, and I'm going to get to those here in a second when we're finished. But I'm going to go through these different loan programs. So every loan that's done in the United States is one of these loans right here. There isn't any other loan program that's available that's not on this sheet. And so I'm going to narrow it down. So this is jumbo. This is if you bought for more than 720,000. Now, might be someone on the call that wants to buy for more than that, but I doubt it. And so therefore I'll cross it out for now. If there's any VA loans, or sorry, if there's any veterans here, then you can do a VA loan. VA loan is a great option. You can see here, there's no down payment requirement. The VA loan is a great option. If you are a veteran, go ahead and put yourself in the chat and love to hear from you. That leaves USDA, and USDA is a first-time homebuyer loan, 0 down here. And then you have conventional. For a first-time homebuyer, you have 3% down. And then also FHA for a first-time homebuyer, the minimum down is 3.5. Now, where these programs come in, these down payment assistance programs that I'm going to send you, these programs actually help pay for this 3.5% and this 3%, because you see FHA, it sometimes might be a lot better program than USDA. So USDA is a lot more conservative, and they have more rules than what FHA is. FHA is a lot easier to qualify for. And so you may not be able to do this, but you can do this loan here, and then you can get down payment assistance where it covers this 3.5%. So that way you don't have to come out of pocket with anything. So that's the loan programs there. So what's next? The next step, if you are serious about wanting to purchase a home, the next step would be to go ahead and book that first appointment with me. And that appointment doesn't cost you anything. There's no pressure. All it's doing is saying, hey, Pete, here's my situation. What do you think? Here's what I got going. I'm going to say, okay, in a 10-minute, 15-minute call, I can basically say, hey, this is how much you'd potentially qualify for, and then take you to that next step. The other thing that we can do is we can even do a soft credit pull. Doesn't affect your credit at all. That soft credit pull allows me to help maximize your credit, make sure you got the best deal. Also, if you think that you might not be wanting to buy for another 1 year, 2 years, or you need to wait a little bit, that's fine too. I'm going to help you along the way. Now, I will encourage you, and I will try to help you buy as soon as possible. Why is that? Well, the reason why is because the market is going to continue to appreciate because of the supply and demand. You see, there's not enough homes out there in the marketplace, and there's just too many families, too many households in your guys' area that's going to continue to drive the demand. Now, I say that meaning I want you to make sure you have a home that's affordable in a good neighborhood, and to a home that you love. If you can find a home that you love and a payment that's affordable, I will do everything I can to help you guys out and purchase your first home. So that's pretty much it. So here's the 15-minute. You can go to this QR code, or what you can do is I'm gonna go ahead and put it in the chat. In the chat, you can click on that link and book your appointment here with me. I'll also text it to you when we're done. The other thing that you can do if you want, you can go ahead and just apply. We do that soft credit pull. If you want to do that, then you can go to this link right here. This is my website. Just go to my website and click apply now. Whoops. Let's see. All right. Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead and put those questions in the chat. Any questions? No questions. All right. Well, that's maybe a good thing. Maybe I covered all your guys' questions. I would love to hear from you guys. I'll definitely be following up with you. And of course, if you do have questions and they come up, that's no problem at all. You can just put them in the text that I've been texting you from, and I definitely will promise I'll get back to you right away. Thank you so much for joining this call. I hope it was super informative and helped you guys out.